Welcome to another episode of the DH Effect, the Decided Heart Effect. I'm Hillary, and this is my lovely co-host, Sonia. And for us, we really believe in finding a decided heart through taking personal accountability, building high trust relationships, and finding and creating belonging. When we take action with our decided heart to create positive change around us, that is the decided heart effect. And, you know, our guest today, Lisa Caprelli, she is by far one of the most amazing. Look at her right there. Do you see it? She is a Latina mom on a mission to help kids learn, but it goes beyond kids. And she does it in so many innovative ways, from speaking to songwriting to writing her award-winning unicorn book series, which is called Unicorn Jazz and offers social emotional learning on empathy, kindness, love, belonging, believing in others. And now she's also the creator of Unicorn Jazz Presents, The Thing I Do, which is a program where kids can be part of the show. I mean, holy unicorn woman. We love this. Wow. We love this. Welcome to our show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be with you and your amazing listeners. And I love the heart in everything you do, ladies. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think that this is going to be the one episode we're going to convince and persuade our listeners to view this, because what you just showed on screen with the puppets and the books, I think that just, and the puppets behind you is something that our listeners should look.
How can you not love this? It comes
right?
from imagination and ideas.
That's amazing.
Yeah, if you're listening right now, you're missing out. Go to the YouTube channel and watch it, because we have seen all kinds of colorful unicorns. Plus, you have to see how gorgeous and amazing the smile and woman, you just
energy
glow.
I'm telling you, we're convinced that we're just going to go drive out and see her. We need more of her.
We are. And before the show, we realized we're all in Southern California.
Yes, for sure.
Look at, I see you.
So how can you not be happy? And I know this is not a plug, even though it kind of is, but it's a plug that everyone should find the happiness within themselves and share it with others. And that ultimately, happiness is free, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So just in case you're listening, Lisa showed some interactive books that it's where you can do worksheets, and there's a story involved, and so there's some activities in terms of. And she was saying that hey, us adults, we can use some of that.
We can use some of it too.
So Lisa, with decided heart moments, like we usually have a lot as human beings, but maybe perhaps there are one or two like profound decided heart moments where you said, you know what, I'm going to settle in this experience a bit more, and then I'm going to decide to take action. We are so curious of what were those experiences for you that led you to where you are today?
Thank you for asking. Well, it's a long story, but I'll do the short story. And if you have questions, let me know. So I grew up in El Paso, Texas. I am from a large Hispanic family. And if you know Hispanic families, many times they are large. And that was predominantly what was us in El Paso. My mom was a single mom raising 5 children. And of course, we had our challenges. We grew up poor, although I always say, how do you know you're poor unless someone tells you? We grew up with a lot of love and laughter and a lot of closeness from family, which I appreciate in our culture. My grandmother had just a 3rd grade education. She was forced to drop out of school when her mother passed away, and she had to raise her family. So growing up, my grandmother was someone that was a matriarch for us, that believed in us. And I often say, as in my book, I See You, Choosing Kindness, and other works of Unicorn Jazz, which we can talk about. Sometimes it just takes one person to believe in you that can be life-changing. And as we grow up in adults, it's important to give that back and believe in others, or, believe in others really your whole life. And I love sharing those lessons to children of all ages. So my grandmother always said, Lisa, the best thing you could do is get an education, get an education, get an education. So I believed her, and I was one of those kids that excelled and was like the straight A, geeky nerd. And that came with its price too. I was made fun of for wearing glasses and bullied, and I was really shy and introverted, shy like my character Unicorn Jazz. So I put a lot of my story and heart and empathy and compassion and feelings into the stories because it was a way for me to revisit my childhood and to really show kids at a young age all the decisions they're going to make and the way they treat others is going to matter to them the whole lifetime. so I leave El Paso, fast forward, when I was 29 years old, I moved to Huntington Beach, California. I've lived here for 20 years in Orange County. So grateful to live near the beach. I say that because living in the desert, I never saw the ocean until I was 17. I only saw it on Fantasy Islands. Many people would remember that show, and I dreamed of seeing the ocean, and blessed that I can see it all the time now. I came here with not much, but a lot of ambition. By this time, I had worked with different companies and CEOs and helping their companies with marketing and branding. And I started my own company and made partnership decisions and did really well. And it was the marketing writer brain in me that helped those companies. And from 2000, I moved here the year of 9/11. And for the next 11, 12 years, I helped other companies build their own business or brand to high success. My numbers, like I've worked with over 160 CEOs and business leaders, and using my human behavior psychology background, which is what I had. And after creating this book, Skip a Step, where I interviewed 13 different entrepreneurs and leaders about what makes for happiness and meaning, and what would you tell your 7-year-old self? What would you tell your 21-year-old self? It wasn't about like, how do I make a lot of money and have a business? Because we often hear like, that's not what it should be about. It should be about what are you doing to help others and serve others. So at the end of Skip a Step, it got me thinking like, well, what is it that I want to do now? Like, it's my turn. And that is how I created Unicorn Jazz, is I wanted to create something that was going to help others. I look back at my childhood, like, what could I have done to skip steps, or what could someone have done for me? And I knew I was going to create a big brand because that's what I was known for doing, and to go beyond the children's books. That's why I have plushes and toys and even like work on this baby book I'm showing you to the screen, songs, and so much excitement and joy to give back.
Oh my gosh.
It's just this plethora of like creativity and joy.
Joy is exuding out of you. It's, it's everything. And all of the products that you've created from your heart and your imagination, it truly does represent this sense of, I'm going to call it sense of spirit that you have. And there's so much confidence and clarity in that for me.
Thank you. Yeah. And when I go to schools, I have such the privilege and honor to speak to not just one classroom, but the entire school, whether it's elementary, middle or high school. And it's interesting because I often say I feel like Benjamin Button, where I started working with adults and then college students. I actually taught college students, and then teens. I wrote this for the teen mind, and then now elementary, and then now even babies. Didn't know that was going to happen, especially again, being the shy girl that I get to be in front of audiences. Had to learn how to do that, by the way. And the best days of my life are being in front of children. If it's every day is the best day of my life. I'm here for them. And when I get kids, fifth graders that will raise their hand when I get to share the joy of creating and doing what you love, I'll get things like, Miss, is it hard to be creative? And I'm like, is it hard to dream? And things that like, how did you change out of your comfort zone? What took, what was like something that was pivotal or secret moment? And it was nothing, one unique thing, but in getting asked these wonderful questions from children who are vulnerable and asking authentic questions, for me, and looking back, it's been a combination of being kind to others. The people that I grew up with, that were my friends, some of them grew up to be school principals, school educators. So guess who I called when I published my book? Them.
Yeah.
And they knew me as that shy girl. So it's interesting when you go in front of audiences and then someone in there knows that that's not who you were growing up. You know what I mean?
Lisa, what is so interesting about what you are saying is we had someone on a couple of episodes ago, Louise Sattler, who was talking about how sometimes women end up getting into a position where they are competitive with one another rather than lifting one another. Right. And yet you've created and networking is almost seen as a dirty word, but the reality is if you create high trust relationships that are truly meaningful and you really want the best for the other person, the karma thing sort of takes care of itself, and you just make space and room and everybody gets to rise together.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and connection is why we are all here. I mean, the pandemic taught us about how the isolation process and how awful it was. You know, as we hear, mental health is on the rise, and in schools and where they're being required to have what's called social emotional learning and learning in books, which my books are categorized as that. And social emotional learning is teaching at an early age, if you can, the importance of feelings and emotions, happy, sad, anger, you know, overcoming all these things that are normal part of day-to-day human experiences. And you and I, we didn't grow up with that being taught in schools. And so the research and studies are that if you teach this at a young age, that's when the learning is going to happen. Because try teaching a kid that's angry, a kid that's depressed or unhappy, is right. It's going to be harder. So I get excited when I see so many people incorporating into their brand, into their curriculum, into their books, you know, social intelligence, because in going back and studying all these things that I was without, and I'm sure everybody here can look back at their childhood and say, what was I not given? Did I have enough communication? Obviously, as we know, as parents, you can't be the be all and everything to your child. There's no manual to being a mom, right? and you can't expect the school to provide all that. It's a lifelong process.
You know, there's one thing I want to go back to your personal story. You had every reason to say, I can't, or it's the adversity is, oh, I guess that's just too hard to work through. For being, I was also a first generation college student. There was a lot of just extra hurdles to have to navigate. And when we talk about high trust relationships, that trust has to absolutely begin with self. Do I trust myself? And I'm just fully believing that you found a way to say, I trust myself fully. I am going forward despite these challenges. And you said one thing in one of your previous interviews, that you knew that you wanted to write as a young girl, but you also knew that only 84, not as a young girl, but later, like 84% will not write the book. Only 3% of those who really, really want to. So that was just like an added barrier mentally. I mean, we could have just, but you believed, I mean, tell me, like, there's this belief and this trust within yourself. Where did that come from?
You know, I would say it's from key people in my life and believing them. My grandmother, who believed in me, my first grade teacher, Miss Johnson, my first grade beginning part of the year, I got N's, you know, we got N's like for needs improvement, and I remember just how awful it was to get N's. And by the end of the my first grade year, I had like most improvement, and the teacher, Miss Johnson, just took me under her wing. She gave me on the last day of school a book by Sid Hoff, Danny and the Dinosaur. And by the way, I show that to kids, Sid Hoff books. That summer, I read all his books. I went to the public library and I immersed myself in getting lost in imagination and stories. And so that teacher changed my life. She doesn't know that. I talk about all the time. As I went into adulthood and started working in the workforce in El Paso, Texas still, I met a woman named Cindy Kirkland, who became my boss and recognized all these different talents in me, still shy, but she recognized how I cared about the company. I was very ambitious, and she would tell me things like, Lisa, you're for bigger things. Leave the city one day, go on. And she had worked with thousands of people in human resources. And she often said, I've never met someone like you. So imagine when you are, you know, a grown up, that you can impart belief and champion other people. And it was those key people that to this day that we're friends with. And I'm always thanking, because I often say we need to do that for others. And I'll tell you, so this, in the first book, Unicorn Jazz moves to a new land in search of new friends. She feels like she doesn't belong. The one that believes in her is her mother. Her mother sings to her. She has a music note to her tail because her special talent is she loves to sing, but she doesn't know that she's a great singer. So the horses say they don't look like her. The horses have two horns. She can't hide like the geckos. So they just, you know, are telling her she doesn't belong. And then she meets a bird, a crow named Wolf, And I did that on purpose. Wolf, imagine a name that a dog should have, but he's proud of his name. And he says, you know, look at you, you have a beautiful voice and you should show off your talent. And so she goes into the playground the next day and sings. And now everyone wants to play with her, play hopscotch with me, color with me, dance with me. And they apologize and they say how awesome she is. And they're all friends. And so I often say, sometimes maybe you're a wolf the crow to someone, you believe in them, or someone believes in you. And that was the basis for all the stories that were to come.
Chills.
I know. And it's so funny because that is like, that literally is the decided heart effect, right? It's when you, that teacher, feeling fully confident and embracing who she was, which was this woman who was meant to go in and teach and work with students and bring out the best in them. And then when she made you, it's like this ripple effect. She made you believe in you. And now you're out and helping others believe in themselves. That's the DH effect, right? Like you're continuing this on. I always see it in my mind as this like flashlight, and the light just keeps shining and shining and getting brighter and brighter and brighter. It just absolutely warms my soul and my heart to hear you saying this, because I do think we are meant to be here on earth to be of purpose, of service.
Yeah.
And when you lean into your talents, that's where you find it. And I mean, again, if you're not watching, you have to watch it, because Lisa is just, you're glowing with how passionate you believe in doing this for others.
Yeah. And every day I get to wake up and feel like I'm 7, you know, with a lifetime of experience and leading creativity and getting artwork from my illustrator, which, by the way, my illustrator, Davey Villalobos, is from El Paso. He happens to be my cousin. It was his lifelong dream to be a published illustrator.
Wow.
And that's the thing he does. And so early on, I told him, how would you like to be part of Unicorn Jazz Dream? And of course, he's on board. And it's just so great to, again, the stories come alive because of the artwork. I can't do what he can, even though I'm an artist. That's the thing he does. So the show that we created since the pandemic that's now on Amazon TV is called Unicorn Jazz Presents The Thing I Do. There's a song I've written, several songs. There's a soundtrack to all of the work we do. And as a mom, if you can appreciate this, with a lot of children's books, with shows like Sesame Street, I grew up with Bugs Bunny. Different cross media helps us to learn. So that's always been important to me. I love music. I can't sing, but Unicorn Jazz has a special talent, gave her that. And I have professional kid actresses that sing and professional people. That's the thing they do. So I'm always reminding people, especially kids and adults, that we all need each other. It's the teamwork that makes our ideas grow. Like you two, you're a dynamic duo, you're a team. And that's one way I've learned it to grow is I'm just the spokesperson, but I come with hundreds of people that have believed in Unicorn Jazz and the process. But one of the things I realized in speaking to children and them being excited, obviously they're not going to all grow up to be writers and authors, you know, but I'm here to teach them at a young age to get excited about technology and all the possibilities of the careers they're going to have growing up. And maybe they develop something unique. Like I created a show during the pandemic because instead of focusing on what I couldn't do because I couldn't go into schools, I said, well, I do have a media background. I could bring people together, find them, ask them, and build a show using video. And it is a homegrown show. But for me, it was like Baby Einstein, the creator. She started out of a studio, and then years later, she's selling her content, her IP, her intellectual property to Disney. So for me, it was just a way to keep going. And then I get to show kids virtually the little pieces of the show on video, which, as we know, kids get excited about that.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Can we lean into that? Yeah, no, go ahead. You ask.
No, I was going to actually talk about more, well, why children are so and special. And a lot of my work is with teens, and I also have children, and there's something very magical about children that is so clear to them and their imagination and confidence as little ones. And being a mother, when I was raising little ones, I realized that they had so much to teach me as an adult.
Right.
And that somehow throughout my young adulthood and adulthood, things got blurry and I started to question what I've always known. And what I'm hearing you say is you really recognize the power, and I literally mean the power of children and their minds and their beliefs, and that you are letting them shine to teach perhaps the adult world and each other, what can we rely on? What can we learn from? And that's where I was resonating, but you probably want to.
No, I think it's amazing. I was wondering about the creation of the pandemic. I mean, again, in the middle of the pandemic, and you're like, I think I'm going to make a TV show.
Well, I knew early on when we didn't know how long the pandemic's going to go on. And, I was already in Facebook groups. I started hearing the conversations and the psychology of what was happening with the teachers, the parents, business people, all, which is important to relate to as a business owner. And I saw the scared capacity in teachers not having confidence if they could learn this technology thing fast. Thankfully, I did have technology. It was easy for me. My son is a YouTuber, although he doesn't like me telling people, but I do tell people because he started at 7 as a YouTuber. He took a lot of my technology skills and took it to a whole nother level. By the way, my son's name is Trey. He's 16 today. And he didn't want anything to do with the unicorn. So one day, while he's away with his dad, I picked him up and I said, I developed another character. My son's name is Trey Ziki.
Oh my gosh. Oh.
And then I made a song, the thing I do, and the book is named after Trey Ziki. And he just smiled like that was his approval. My older son, I have a 30-year-old son who's a nurse, a healthcare worker, and my older son is so gregarious, and he was pursued to be an actor when he was younger. He became a nurse. My older son plays the voice. So there's a game show on the show, the thing I do on Amazon TV. Please watch it. We created this homegrown since the pandemic. A lot of kids, professional kids, actors singing. People have described it like a modern day Sesame Street. And we used green screen, and we had kids send in their content because, as you guys know, we have our phones today that has awesome capabilities that you and I didn't grow up with, right?
Yeah, true.
And so for me, it was like, how can we bring happiness during the pandemic? And I couldn't focus on the negative. For me, it was not going to get me out of bed.
Right.
And that's when I spent all my time. I tell people, if you're an entrepreneur, we all know this, that we tend to work a lot, And so during the pandemic, I probably put in more working hours than any time in my life, because I knew what I was building, which now we've achieved some of it, but still a lot of potential to grow. We want to turn Unicorn Jazz and Stories into an animation series, and on and on and on. And I'm just so grateful that so many people have been part of the infancy, kind of like seeds, and they're seeing the seeds, pop up now. And still, I'm grateful for a show like yours to be introduced right now, where we continue to take off. And to me, in the beginning, I saw as a brand, there's Hello Kitty, there's Mickey Mouse, and I want Unicorn Jazz to be a national global household name one day. And it takes the hard work and perseverance of getting out there like we're doing today and connecting.
Well, I just think, people gravitate to those who are truly authentic in their vision and their beliefs and their values. And that's probably why you've been able to build the momentum that you have with such talent, is because, there's so many things out there and information and products and everything. But what we're craving, especially today during this time, is authenticity, like really meaningful connection. And I can just see why you're on the road you are.
Yeah. And before the pandemic, I was going to Children's Hospital, Orange County, reading my stories, bringing song, again, bringing happiness to me. It's like, how can we bring happiness to those who need it? And last Christmas, we did a book donation drive where we, put out to the public a lot of our Unicorn Jazz kids that are part of our show and have connected, and said, I want to donate my allowance to give books to the children. So we raised a lot of books. And then this is our second annual children's book donation drive. And we've partnered with big organizations and nonprofits like Hindi's libraries. And they're helping donate thousands of books with their efforts. And this year we need more places to give them where kids in need. So it's Children's Hospital, Orange County, El Paso Children's Hospital, where I'm from, Los Angeles Food Bank called Aaron Community Cultural Center, Shade Tree Las Vegas, an orphanage in Haiti called Grangu. And people say this organization needs help, and I pray, and it's a team of volunteer efforts. But how exciting to give books to children in need. And especially, I was one of those kids once. I was one of the kids that would have been in line for food growing up. I was one of the kids that was grateful if we got donated shoes or toys during Christmas time. So to go and do that, to me, and have something meaningful, and to give my own books away, and to get to read to the kids and bring in musicians. Now I'll have to invite you guys to the event December 18th. We're doing a Heart of Christmas event at the Erin Community Cultural Center. We have musicians, professional singers donating their time. Catriona Frey, Elena Bernardi, who has Unicorn Music Academy, again, serendipity, and on and on and on. And what a feel good, mission to be part of for people and for the kids we serve.
Well, how can our listeners and our watchers become involved?
Oh my God. You go to unicornjazz.com, follow us on social media. I'm Lisa Caprelli. I'm easy to follow on all of that. Unicornjazz.com/book donations talks about this project and initiative we're doing now, because it's already taking off, largely, and it's just our second annual. And we're just so grateful, because as I often tell people, there's a lot of great charities out there to give to. What I love is we're just asking to give one book, give many books. We're giving the whole book, not the eighth of a book. And you just are bringing smiles to children with books and learning. Again, something that my grandmother said is always important. And we all know this. As parents, what do we want for our children? We want them to learn as much as they can to get a good education.
For sure.
We have loved. I'm going to just lump you in, because I know I can see it on your face and I can feel it with her energy. We have loved so much having you here. And the things that I have loved hearing from you, showing up in passion. I hope that our listeners and our viewers can see when there's something on your heart, lean into it, find the joy in it. And then when you're giving of your talent and your creativity and your service and you're creating belonging with that, magical unicorn things happen.
Right?
And we are just so grateful for the time that you spent with us. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful. Thank you, Hillary and Sonia. I'm so grateful. And I'm so grateful that we're friends too. And we have so many connections. And I know I'm talking to your daughter, who did a unicorn project when she was a teen. No, when she was younger, but she's a teen now. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
I mean, everyone, we thank you so much for joining us for another week of the DH Effect. We do hope that you found something that inspires you, like Lisa. Lisa, you inspire us today.
For sure.
And that inspiration should lead to taking action within our own lives. So don't forget, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you got to watch this episode. Okay. You've heard this like multiple times today, but you can also subscribe to all the podcast platforms that you listen to. And you can also continue the conversation with Lisa and ourselves through Instagram and Facebook. Do not forget to stop and reflect. Take the time to live with a decided heart. Until next time, may you find the courage to live with a decided heart anchored by identity, trust, and belonging. Thank you, everybody.